All righty. Let's take a look at the WWDC 26 updates we got here. I've got Jordan Montgomery here with me. We're going to take a look at each of these sections and see what they mean to an IT admin.
All right.
All righty. So, network configurations. This is mostly new declarative device management options that an IT admin can start playing with once you're on OS 27. Something to see if it can improve a workflow here and there, but nothing really breaking, nothing changing for existing flows, I would say.
Yeah, seems like some nice quality of life improvements. Config profiles as declarative assets. So this is looks like an extension of something Apple announced some time back, where you can ship config profiles through declarative management. They're essentially now allowing them to be defined as assets. This doesn't change anything about their existing support. I think this just gives some additional flexibility for where and how you host those, um, and should be a nice quality of life improvement for people using assets today.
All righty. Increase network security requirements. Well, I mean, let's be honest that it's probably just bringing it up to par with today's expectations of security. So I don't think if your infrastructure is up to date, that you're going to have too much to worry about. But maybe if you have some ancient legacy systems, this might cause some issues. But best thing to do would be download the beta and try to do your workflows and see if anything gets blocked.
Yep, they've got a lot of commands on there you can run and things, but I think the easiest way is just to actually test it. macOS 27. Status reporting enhancements. So they've added a lot of new status reports for things like awaiting configuration that used to come in via specific check-ins, the is shared iPad and return to service. So these are all, nice things for MDM vendors. This is all information that MDMs had before, but it allows you know retrieving it all through the declarative pathway. This lockdown mode change is interesting just because it finally gives you an easy way to get status updates on that if someone is using it. But again, nothing in here that seems like it's anything that anyone has to action immediately.
Alrighty, and then web content filter plugin configuration. This is going to give education and business IT admins some more functionality on being able to filter out what websites you have access to on the network, but seems like it's mostly additional capabilities.
Yep. An AppleCare log collection. This is a really interesting new feature they're adding to allow sending a command to start and stop log collection. That, rather than having to jump through the prior hoops that you'd have to do to often get logs off of a specific system somewhere out in the wild that a user has, can all be initiated through an MDM command with a special token provided by AppleCare support. Uh, you know, how often this will be used remains to be seen. Not something that will require action immediately, but the fact that Apple is putting this out there kind of suggests that they're going to want vendors to implement this at some point, probably just to streamline cases.
Yeah, I think we're all going to save at least 1,000 hours a year uh, on this
I
new
am
flow.
I am certainly looking forward to no longer having to try to airdrop something from an iPhone I was testing on so I can get it to the right, thing, or log into my feedback assistant account on an iPad. So that'll be nice.
Yeah. All right, for backup restoration, the device is no longer restored device management information from a backup. That just means that after you restore from backup, you won't have the same kind of MDM state. So you might have to go through a MDM enrollment or uh, what else would this change?
So if you are enrolled through particularly like an enrollment where you downloaded a profile, you logged in via the work or school account screen, and you restore from a backup, that MDM enrollment is going to be completely gone. The real little note here is that because of this, a system is going to more or less act like it got unenrolled from MDM after it goes through this. So a system that's in ADE, Apple Business Manager, that's going to re-enroll on, automatically. But those systems enroll via profiles. If they've got managed apps on them that are set to be removed, they're going to be removed as part of the backup restore process. If they're set to not be removed on enrollment, they'll still be there, and your MDM can restore its management of those apps. But this might require some rethinking of, kind of your run books and procedures around backup restoration, especially if you're doing a lot with, profile-based enrollments rather than Apple Business Manager.
Yep, definitely something to review for sure.
Return to service enhancements. So return to service is a feature that was added sometime back for iOS and iPad OS to make it easier for devices that are just regularly wiped and then potentially reused by another user the next morning, devices in a factory or something like that. Um, these look like they've just added a bunch of nice quality of life improvements, such as something to automatically retry the MDM enrollment, some new keys to set the language and region and things like that, as well as the software update enforcement, just to speed up that process, make it a little less error prone and a little more resilient to temporary network blips and things that matter a lot when you're wiping that iPhone, every other day. Don't matter as much for a device that gets enrolled once and used for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really nice user experience improvement.
I think so too.
Alrighty. Wi-Fi assist term change, just nothing functional, just making sure that we call it connectivity assist because it's more than just Wi-Fi now. But that makes sense to me.
Yep. Content caching configuration. So content caching is something that Apple is recommending more and more, just anecdotally from support cases. And so as part of that, they are adding some new declarative status items around content caching. They're also adding a new really cool feature that is this management status target and reporting interval. And so rather than all of this data just being fed back to your MDM system that may or may not even care about it, you can now point your content caches towards some other kind of server. So, if your CTO wants a dashboard showing how much bandwidth you're saving or how well your caches are working, you can do some really cool things with this data, it sounds like, and, ship it to more or less wherever you want. You don't have to build some sort of integration to your MDM system. Nothing that's immediately, required or actionable here, but nice new functionality if, you want to get that data, if you like having that data and getting an idea of how well your content caches are working.
Yeah, absolutely. So new visionOS restrictions, I think we're just bringing up the parity of security that you can start enforcing at Apple Vision Pro, which is really nice to see.
Yep. Intelligent Siri and keyboard management. So, really, a lot of what is being done here is adding really granular restrictions and configurations around these Apple Intelligence features. Uh, even down to the app level, so you can control whether if you want Apple Intelligence to be usable in Notes, but you don't necessarily want it having access to your email or Safari, you can set those restrictions now. It's that granular. You can also control external intelligence integrations, and you can control Siri pretty granularly, whether or not it's available while the device is locked, whether the profanity filter is turned on, as well as a lot of these keyboard settings. So this just really gives admins really fine-grained control. I think this will be particularly useful again for specifically devices in highly regulated environments and also those return to service environments where you've got a really strict specific set of functionality you want on that device. and nothing else.
Yep. All right, file provider management. We've got an old file provider capability profile here, but getting some new, fresh updates to our ability to configure it. So making it so that we can include or exclude new uh, volumes and some additional controls here for file provider management, like Dropbox or Google Drive. I think that'll be a welcome update.
Yeah, I think this will be really nice for admins who, want to use providers like that, but restrict what sort of data they have access to, restrict whether they can talk to external volumes, things like that. Manage Migration Assistant. So Migration Assistant has, it's a great feature for users, but certainly something that has been a stumbling block in the path for, various admins, various software vendors. This new Managed Migration Assistant gives you a lot more fine-grained control over what does and does not get migrated. The really exciting things here, I think, are these excluded paths and excluded accounts. So if you've got specific software that you don't want getting moved over because you want it getting installed fresh with a brand new configuration, or you've got, a hidden admin account that, you want that getting created fresh, you can control this pretty granularly. You can also force certain things to be moved over. So if you've got, certain things that are in a home directory, like a certificate or something that you're deploying out there or something else. This just allows a lot more finer grained control. This, not something anyone will have to use day one, but certainly people will want to start looking at if they've had issues with Migration Assistant in the past, or even, we've heard some admins saying, I don't want this in my environment at all. Maybe it's usable again.
Absolutely. And then last but certainly not least, we've got the software update command removal. No longer able to send the MDM command to trigger software updates, software update queries, nothing. We've got to all be using the declarative way now. So yeah, I think it's finally time. Once you're on 27, you don't have to use the MDM command for here. You got to use declarative management at this point.
Yep, and Apple's announced this in the past, so this is nothing too shocking. Hopefully it's not catching anybody by surprise. But this is certainly another move in the long movement towards everything declarative. So yeah, the one thing that I'm surprised not to see here is just the one call out that Intel Macs will not support Mac OS 27. So that is something that it's been noted for a while that Mac OS 26 is the last version supporting them, which implies that of all the things changing, none of this is available on Intel Macs. And if you've still got some, you'll definitely want to, you know, document where those are and start thinking about what your plans are for those coming up.
Yep. If you were pushing off thinking about dealing with that, now is finally the time to deal with it for sure.
Yep.
All right, Jordan, thank you so much for joining me as we reviewed the WWDC 26 updates.
Yeah. Thanks, George.